For the people who have been to prison, what was the worst thing about it? Where I grew up ruralish Argentina, they believed in short, but very punishing jail sentences for minor medium crimes. Specifically, the jail cells stunk to high hell. They sprayed them all with ferret musk or mink musk, whatever that is. I think it was real, since there was a mink farm not too far away. Whatever it was is unbearable. I served 3 days there and I've never felt so nauseous in my life. You can taste the musk in the air. I still can't visit people's homes with ferrets. It's a little like that, but way more pungent and 1,000 times stronger in those cells. Being put on a disciplinary diet for a week. They had decided Nutriloaf wasn't gross enough, so switched to something just called slop. It was made much like pig slop. Take edible kitchen scraps both from the prison kitchen and I think even some outside restaurants donated, mixed with slightly sour milk too oft to drink but not yet rotten, blend it into a smoothie, boil it to kill germs, and serve. Sometimes they would add in a bunch of vinegar at the end too before serving, to make it even less palatable. I've been a hostage, which is better than prison in some ways but worse in others. The way it is worse other than things like gunfight, starving or hypothermia is that you can get your head blown off at any moment, for any reason. I had already seen that happen to another hostage who wasn't needed anymore, so that level of uncertainty hanging over you is pretty rough. Got to a point that I thought an hour had gone by when it had been 7 minutes. I worked at a prison doing IT support. Only went to the cells on occasion, but to me it's the paper-thin mattresses in the tiny room. Technically by law you're allowed 1 hour free time outside the cell in the common area, but that's if everyone behaves and the cell block doesn't act up. Which this was a medium-level place, sentences were 1 year or less. So it was rare they were on lockdown. Not much natural light for obvious reasons. Oh, I'm from Belarus, so there was plenty. Prison wards would pour bleach on the floor every day to prevent COVID spreading. Or beat us up and leave barefoot in a dark dank concrete cell. Or just leave lights and loud music for a couple of days. Shut the water off for weeks. But the worst part was listening to them talking to each other or other prisoners, debating about politics and democracy. I went for a job interview at a prison if it counts. The worst thing I saw was a guy who had serious psychiatric issues. Anyway, he'd carved a hole into his own tummy that wouldn't heal properly as he was always hiding stuff in there. One day he tried to hide a little towel or something in there and apparently bits of it had started fusing to him inside. Pretty much noped out of that job. Waking up to get counted. Every morning I would wake up to count time over the speaker. I would have an instant realization that I was still locked up. Lousy feeling to wake up to. Also getting locked in my cell at night. I'd have an uneasy feeling that I'd never see that door open again. Oh, and no women. Can't forget that. I've only been to jail for a short time, but I feel like the claustrophobia is not talked about much. It was literally torture for me. I was counting minutes till I got bailed out. I guess it's obvious if you're locked in a room, but yeah, it's not as easy as just sitting and waiting. Maybe you get used to it. I know a guy who committed financial fraud and got medium security prison for 6 years. He said the worst part was the non-stop noise from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Couldn't find a minute of quiet to just be alone with his thoughts for a few hours. Even reading was impossible. Noise. Other people were smuggling drugs. I smuggled earplugs. Food horrific. Flies everywhere and on everything. I was lucky enough to have a creative Asian roommate who made awesome food for us. The co's out went out of their way to make you miserable. My friend went to jail for a crime he didn't commit, but he was given jobs. Like haircuts. And food delivery to the women's side of the county jail. The police officers routinely raped the women. But before a friend of mine. Irony. Ex-prisoner here. The worst thing was the boring everyday routine combined with unpredictable acts of violence and intimidation. For a lot of prisoners there was nothing to do but eat, sleep, watch TV, gossip and start shit with other inmates. The amount of unpredictable crazy people in prison. Since most state-run hospitals are shut down, many mental health consumers are handled in the criminal justice system. These people are on cell blocks and can snap at the slightest thing. The worst thing about prison was the Dementors. They were flying all over the place and they were scary, and then they'd come down and they'd suck the soul out of your body and it hurt. My friend didn't mention this being the worst thing, but it's got to be in the top 2. Being in the bottom bunk and having someone in the top bunk farting 2 feet away from your head. Spent 2 years in SC. It's always loud. Not like the movies, no one ever sleeps a good night's rest. The food starts its bland taste 4 months in, and it never changes after that. The worst thing for me was the fact that I couldn't get up at 3 o'clock and go to the store for whatever I want. It's the confinement that makes it so hard. I did 13 years, leaving it. Just joking around, can ignore. Was a military one, was given enough money for either pack of cigarettes or 5-minute call, so cigarettes and chess all day. Used to be a CO, the worst thing about it, for me, was how filthy and dirty it is. And there's a weird smell, like a dank locker room where no one showers. Anyone 18 and over with a GED can become a CO by attending a 6-week academy. Fully paid. You have to not show up in order to fail. The bar is very low. Know a few people who are COs and other who were inmates. Most of the complaints I've heard are about how stupid everyone are. Huge idiots everywhere. You actually get used to the 24/7 noise including snoring at night and the smell, but you never get used to the absolute soul-sucking boredom. My best bud has been to prison in Canada. His experience was not bad at all. He loves bringing up being captain of the ball hockey team. I am not speaking from personal experience, but it seems like a very difficult place to be if you have a chronic medical condition. The sounds. It really carries far in lonely empty corridors and cells. It's like having a radio you can shut out 24/7. Dropping the soap. Even if you don't get assaulted, it's still embarrassing AF. You're gonna really panic if it happens. I don't, but the idea to be with people I don't have anything in common terrifies me. Also, I'm claustrophobic. Having your sentence extended for disciplinary violations, especially if you are close to your release date. Boredom. Not having access to the outdoors. No seats on the toilets. The smell of urine on a hot day. Dropping your bar of soap in the showers. Do you bend at the waist or knees? Neither is a good way to look. It's very similar to the military. Never-ending boredom punctuated by brief moments of extreme violence. What hurts the most is the lack of respect. I haven't, but my friend Mike went to prison once. He told me the worst part was the dementors. Why not just get pre-trial release like all people facing multiple indictments? I was doing a jigsaw and at the end it was actually missing bits. Not been to prison, but probably the whole lack of general freedom. They have animals behind cages, but it's nothing like the zoo. Gruel sandwiches, gruel omelets. Oh, and the dementors. I haven't been, but it would probably be getting sick. Walking out the gates with nothing and no place to go.